Hi, I'm Mair Alight, and I'm here with Michael Miners. And this is what the podcast is entitled, What is Mine to Do? It's not mine, but mine, ours, right? So, what is ours to do? What is mine to do? And the story that I'd like to offer that might help to you to say what you're going to say. I don't know. The story is there's babies floating down the river, and you're on the shore seeing these babies floating by. And what do you do? What is mine to do? I'm looking at the babies in the river. For me, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna look and see, are they swimming? Are they happy? Are they floating? Are they sinking? Are they crying? What's going on? So that they could help inform me as to what I'm impelled to do. Some people I ask just say, jump in and save the babies. What are you kidding? Some people say, let's, whatever. So here you are at the side of the river. There's babies floating by, and what's yours to do? What comes to your mind?
I have a similar response to yours to just understand what's going on as best I can. Um, it's my habit these days to, rather than to force myself to do anything or to make predetermined judgments of things and force myself to regular actions, if this then that type of rules for myself, to just be present and to witness what happens, which includes witnessing what I do rather than to determine what I do. Um, so I think my first response would be curiosity, both about the situation and about my role. And then to watch what arises would be my recent habit.
Yeah. So noticing what I would say about that is what I'm hearing is like life on life's terms. What's going on around you, and then how are you with it? And
Yeah,
having curiosity about what could
yeah,
you do, what might you do, what do you want to do?
yeah. And because it's not happening right now, it's an imaginary thing. It literally could be anything. I might do anything in that situation. I have no idea. I wouldn't know until it was happening.
Right. So here,
I can say,
oh, go
in the
ahead.
spirit of one interpretation of the question, to just take all that stuff out of it and just say, like, well, what do you think you would do? I, I might do something more similar to the second example that you gave. Just feel the impulse to jump in and start saving babies. But I recognize that would be a knee-jerk response, that they may not need saving. That by jumping
And
in,
there
I
might be
might
some,
be interrupting something that should be happening. You know?
and there can be some urgency there. We're talking about babies. I mean,
Yeah.
theoretically, babies know how to swim. So is it a wild, raging river? So that's the whole theory, and there can be all these different points. What about in real life? Like, how do you decide? Uh, well, I'm remembering this Mark Twain quote that
Hmm.
there's the two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you realize why.
Mm.
So that's somehow connected to me with the what's yours to do. Like, what is the why that's
Yeah.
engages you?
Hmm. The why, I feel like I've had both of those. And I feel like the second one, the day you found out why, that blinks in and out of my awareness. Like I go from I've had this experience, like, oh, I think I understand why I'm here, and then I've discovered later that doesn't hold true later, and then it
Oh,
happens again, and then it fades away, and that it's kind of constantly honing, constantly sifting to finer and finer understanding. And I imagine that process won't end, but who knows? Um, and One of the more satisfying versions of that, why was I here? Why am I here? Or why was I born? Is that that's an answer that's way above my pay grade. That I was here, I was born for a reason that I will never be able to fathom. There's some, if indeed there is a reason, it is a reason, it's someone or something else's reason than mine, and made on a level that is way beyond my comprehension. It understands far more than I will ever understand. And so whatever I am, I don't understand right now. That I can't even really put my finger on what I am or who I am or what my value to the world is. Because I have the thought that when I walk down the street, or I had the experience, I walk down the street, I witness people, especially if it's a busy street, I witness people on the other side of the street or down the block doing things that impact me. Sometimes it's something that I find unpalatable or I get angry about. Sometimes it's something that fills me with inspiration. I watch someone's kind act to someone else, and it changes the course of my day. And that often those interactions that I witness are being enacted by people who don't know that I'm witnessing them and never will know. And when I have that image in my head, it strikes me that I am that for others all through my day, and that perhaps what I'm here to do has to do with those things that I will never know my effect. It'll never come into my consciousness. I will never know that I had that impact on someone. And so those are the kinds of images that tell me that there's whatever makes a purpose beyond my own awareness, is operating at a level beyond my awareness, and therefore I don't have a conscious contribution I can make to that other than the things I just happen to do. And so
Happen to do, but how do you make, the happening, how does that, I mean, you're sitting in this room, in your room right now, talking to me.
yeah,
How did you, it didn't just happen?
well, I think on a level it did just happen. I happened to see that you booked a time. I know there have been times that I haven't noticed when someone booked a time with me, so I
But
happened
you
to,
set up the link. You set up the link so people could book time with you.
yes, and
That
I've
was
noticed that,
it didn't happen. You
oh,
actually
I've
did it.
had the experience that even though I've made the link, people have booked time using that link and I didn't notice it. So there are all these things that are kind of beyond my but beyond my ability to affect, that just do, to my mind, appear to happen. And then when I made the link, I was responding to an impulse. Who put that impulse there? Did I decide to have the impulse to do it? I don't know. Maybe. Yes, probably. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm not so sure. So I've kind of taken myself out of this, what I used to do, which was to sort of stand aside of myself and push myself to do things, to tell myself these are right things to do, those are wrong things to do. You have to do this. Don't do that. If you screw this up, you're being irresponsible. If you don't show up on time, you're a bad person. If you say this thing and it upsets someone, then you've been wrong. Those things those thoughts still run in my head, but I'm less attached to them these days, and I'm grateful for that. Um, I just keep having the experience that the things that I do are seem to be not entirely within my control. So I'm now more curious about what I do rather than
Yeah.
preordaining what I should do or what I will do in this or that situation. Oh, you're muted again. Hmm.
Okay. Uh, what you used to do is have those thoughts running in your head and you observed yourself and you made decisions about, oh, that'd be better, that'd be worse, and I'll do this and I won't do that. And all these things were occurring for before.
Yeah.
You do that less now.
Hmm.
And what led to that lessening of that observing? Was it the work? Was it nonviolent communication? Was it
Uh,
braver
yeah.
angels? What
Yeah.
brought you?
Well, the shift started with profound suffering. I was
Oh,
I had an experience of life that felt unlivable to me. I attached to a lot of negative thoughts, and I was kind of trapped in loops of negative thinking, depression, PTSD, things like that. And then I found the technique of questioning stressful thoughts that was developed by Byron Katie, and that helped me to look.
oh, there's this little hand. What is that?
That hand is responding to the thumb on your chin is seeing that as a thumbs up, and it's putting it on the screen.
Well, thumbs up to this, because what I'm hearing is that you were in so much pain and suffering, and you
Yeah,
had all those loopy thinking, and then you
yeah,
found this, oh, there is a way to address that you found for yourself. Oh, there's a way to address that.
yeah.
And and was that when you started doing the Out of Suffering, the website that you have?
Yeah, yeah. So the way it worked was I learned this technique of questioning my stressful thoughts, and the idea was really just querying the thought that I would have to really look at whether or not it is true. In the coldest, most objective sense, is it true? Whatever this thing is, I'm thinking, and to examine it from within for as far as I could tell, not by someone else's research or someone else's say so or authority, but my own inner understanding. And I, through that process, I found that every stressful thought I had was not true. And so that was a
Every
profound shift.
stressful thought?
So far, I have never
Wow.
questioned a stressful thought and found it to be true. That doesn't mean that there aren't any true stressful thoughts. I just, so far, 5 or 6 years in, have never questioned one and found it to be true. And so that has loosened my grip on a belief in my own thoughts. Now my thoughts are more interesting than they are compelling or impelling. They're more like weather that comes and goes and does seem to have an effect on things. I would say thoughts have profound effect on things when believed, but when not believed, they just kind of come and go like the weather. And so I'm far less I'm far less reflexive in following their dictates now. Just notice them. And so I find that if I'm feeling a motivation that's coming from a place of stress, I'm immediately skeptical
Yeah.
of the thought that's driving it. And so what I've noticed though is that the actions that I would take in moments of profound suffering and stress and belief in stressful thoughts pale in comparison in terms of the quality of the experience and the quality of the outcome to the actions I take without really even having much of an intention. That when I'm kind of
Something
acting
happened there for
without,
me. I lost what you were saying. You started the sentence. I thought I was with you, and then something happened. Now, I don't know what
yeah,
you heard. Maybe you could say that with some different words.
yeah, let me try it differently. The way I would take actions when I was in a mode of suffering and where my actions were kind of meant to fix a problem. My
Ah,
mind would say there's a problem, and therefore I'd have a motivation and I'd take action to the experience of taking those actions and the result of taking those actions was a far lower quality experience, far lower quality outcome than to just respond to the world without much thought, to just be carried along by what's happening, to notice what I do rather than to dictate what I do, to be present without laying, be present laying as little meaning onto things as I possibly can.
okay. So let me see if I got this, because
Yeah,
that's kind of like what you were saying in the very beginning was the thing about meaning. Well, I don't know. You're curious and
yeah,
looking like the babies in the river, and things happen in your life. How do they happen? Well, so you were in this sort of like in a lot of pain about, I think you said PTSD and something else,
depression.
depression. And
Mhm.
so you started questioning using this line of reasoning of looking at your thoughts. Okay,
Yeah,
here's a thought. Is this a true thought? And there's
yeah,
a particular thing you can work through here. Is it a true thought? And I think you're answering my question about, is that when you started the Out of Suffering, your what's now your website? I think it
yeah,
wasn't your website, it was something you were doing for yourself, right?
yeah. That's right. So yeah, out of suffering became my repository of the thoughts that replaced my stressful thoughts. So
Uh,
when I would question a stressful thought, I would find it to not be true and it would lose its grip on me. That, to my mind, right now, would leave some space for a new thought to arise. And since I can no longer believe the stressful thought, I wasn't getting anything similar to that thought running into the space. And I'd get thoughts that were far more peaceful. And so, noticing the effect of believing a stressful thought on my life, I thought, well, for the time being, I'm going to experiment with capturing every peaceful thought I believe, and allowing myself to believe that thought if I do, to not argue with any beliefs I have in peaceful thoughts, and see what happens. And so far, I've found it to be perfectly safe to believe peaceful thoughts. That I haven't found a drawback yet.
the
So
differences between a stressful thought and a peaceful thought is that you feel better.
the difference between a stressful thought for me, I have a definition of stress that actually came out of this that I captured. I was like, oh, this is a peaceful, peaceful definition of suffering is actually what I want to.
Uh,
A definition of suffering is the belief that I need things to be different than they are. That I could trace every instance of suffering that I've experienced to that belief. Things should be different than they are, or I need them to be different than they are. So I define that as suffering. I define peace as the absence of suffering.
mm,
So, so a thought that comes in that has no suffering in it for me I find is totally safe to believe, and that I haven't experienced a drawback yet from believing a peaceful thought. So I started collecting them, and that's what Out of Suffering is. I just started collecting them because I had the desire to root myself in peaceful thoughts rather than stressful ones.
Mm,
Just a more fun way to live,
more peaceful.
more peaceful. Yeah.
So how did I and you connect? Because I'm teaching nonviolent communication, and
Hmm.
somehow
Yeah,
something
my
about
brother.
that interested you.
Yeah, my brother recommended the book, Marshall's book, Nonviolent Communication.
Brother recommended it.
Yeah, and I loved the idea of the title. I read it, devoured it, didn't want it to be over when it was over, and so I was looking for more of that. Went on the CNVC website, found your name, signed up for your workshop, and then started chain smoking your workshops.
I'm so grateful that my last name starts with an A. So I was right there on the top where you could find
Right.
me. If I was down in the Z's, that might not
Yeah.
have happened. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I've been so grateful for 2.5 years of doing workshops with you, and then years of training alongside you, training people alongside you has been fun too.
yeah. And now that the what happens, I'm gonna have to look up that. I want to look up that word happens and see. I'll see what happens when I look up that word.
Yeah.
um, yeah, there's a lot of alignment, isn't there, between the maybe it's not even between this idea of looking for stressful thoughts, because that's a whole thing of our thoughts connect to our feelings, connect
Mhm.
to our needs, connect to how we might get our needs met.
Yeah, and this is a funny little thing. I think it's really germane to the conversation we're having, and runs a little bit counter to the language used in NVC. Through this process of questioning my stressful thoughts, I've found, at least for myself, there's no such thing as a need that isn't being met.
Mm.
I think you could imagine how that might be a peaceful thought for me. Um, and so far, I've found that to be the case. That when I when I look at my situation and do my best to remove what I'm thinking and believing from the situation, I usually, well, so far, again, I can't find a problem that doesn't exist in what I'm thinking and believing.
Mm.
And which to me suggests that aside from what I'm thinking and believing, there is no problem, and therefore no need. There's everything is as it should be. So if I need something, it's there. And if I don't need it, it might not be there, and that's fine. And I've started to basically have the knee jerk response to my world. If I need something, if I have something, well, I must need it, and if I don't have it, I must not.
You know how I like to play with words, Mike.
Yeah,
No, you
yeah.
do too. So when I just heard you say need jerk, not need jerk,
I love that. Yeah,
the need jerk. Oh yeah, I remember being with Marshall Rosenberg, the group of people. I think it was at some kind of training anyway, and someone asked him the question, "Well, how many needs are there, Marshall?" And Marshall said, "I love that question." This is what I remember. "I love that question. Get into groups and figure it out." So we got in these little groups of 5 or 7 people. Let's figure out
yeah,
how many needs are there really. And my group came back and said, "Well, we've determined there are no needs."
yeah.
Uh, and Marshall was intrigued, curious, as he would be on many occasions. I would experienced that curiosity in him. He said, tell me more, why are there no needs? Because we were using the Manfred Max Neef, the Chilean economist. He has like 7 needs, I think there are, of how a nation or a country
Hmm.
determines whether or not they're satisfying the needs of their people.
Sure.
Needs for education, clothing, water, whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
so and for me, the way I looked at it was, I think it's similar, but with different words than you just used. That in English language, to have a need means there's something that is not being, that
Yeah.
needs to be gotten because it's not there. I need
Yes.
this. So it's the way we use that word, that language in
I
language.
I would define that word, and I think it matches up with what you're saying, and tell me if it does. I would define need as a requirement that must be met in order for me to be okay. That's the way I define that word. And
Well, like one person said, well, Marshall, I can tell you things you have to have. And Marshall said, what do you have to have? And the guy said, well, air, you have to breathe. Marshall said, no, you don't have to breathe. There are people that don't breathe. The guy said, well, then I'd die. And Marshall said, yeah, that would probably be an outcome. It's like,
mhm, yeah, that's how I see it too.
so we don't really need anything other than to look within and sort of
Yeah.
enjoy the experience of being, which that takes me to the withing way.
Hmm.
Oh, that's so logical.
I love that.
That I, in my being, can be with you right
Hmm.
now in your being. So
Yeah.
we're being together. There's nothing either one of us has to go and get or say or do in order for the beingness to be the withing.
Yeah.
Be with
Yeah.
ourselves and each other. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I'd like to just end this recording right here.
Okay.
I feel really satisfied with where we got and enjoyed it, and I'm ready to enjoy something else.
Great. Thanks for inviting me to it.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. So if people want to get in contact with you, is there a way you would suggest that they could do that if they want to continue the conversation with you, or ask, or they're curious about questions that ask of you? What comes up in you
I've
about that?
never considered that question. Uh, I don't have an answer.
No. Well, I'd like to suggest, because I found such value in it, that the Out of Suffering, is it outofsuffering.com?
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can go, people can go over there and look and see if something moves them, if they're interested in some particular something in
Yeah.
it. Like you're
Yeah. There,
saying that,
there are thoughts that are peaceful to me, and I have the thought that no two people are exactly the same. And at the same time, we're all similar. And so if you think of it as a garden of someone's peaceful thoughts,
yeah,
the gate is open. Feel free to wander in.
yeah, yeah. I like that. And I'm recorded this so that it could be on a Substack recording. And it will
Hmm.
also be on my YouTube channel, I think. So people could contact me. My name is there, your name is there. People can
Yeah.
figure that out if they want to. And
Yeah.
and maybe I'll link in the show notes a way that I'll put the outofsuffering.com, I'll put mairlight.org. People can come or go as they like and review this, share this with other people, or not. And make comments. I think there's a way to make comments underneath.
Yeah.
So that would be a way of continuing the interaction, or the
Yeah. And if
what.
someone really wants to get in touch with me, they can ask you to connect me with them, I guess. Yeah.
There you go.
Cool.
So I do have carte blanche to collect anyone who wants to connect with you. I'll just say, here,
Great.
go here, do that. Yeah.
Awesome.
And likewise.
Yeah, great.
you know how to connect with me. So yeah, let's just end this and then we can keep talking, because
Great.
goodbye, everybody, for now. This is the
Bye.
recording. I'm stopping it, I think. Do you want to